So I do want to welcome all of you to our service today, and I want to thank Rachel. Where are you, Rachel? Yes. For handling that situation extremely well. Did you see how cool, how calm she was? She didn't miss a beat. She went back and picked up the passage and read through like nothing has happened. So fantastic. Good work. Now, we'll come back to that later. I want to thank Rachel for deciding to read Psalm 23 for us today, but I do want to thank all of you for your prayers. And I got back Friday, and the time was hectic, but the meetings were extremely fruitful with some of the groups that we are working with. So thank you for all your prayers. It is good to be back in the house of the Lord. Now, while we commend Rachel for having done an excellent job with the situation and for getting us through Psalm 23, if you are to be honest with yourself, when you listen to the reading of Psalm 23, I wouldn't blame you if you had a sense of anticlimax because of the over-familiarity with Psalm 23. Because I wouldn't blame you, according to studies and polls done, Psalm 23 is the most preached on passage, if there is such a word as that. The most preached on chapter, the psalm which is preached most often, and in second place comes Psalm 121. I look up to the hills, where does my help come from? You know that psalm. Psalm 23 is what most preachers go all the time. And it is a very popular psalm. You probably heard it at weddings. You probably heard it at funerals. You probably heard it at bedsides in hospitals and anywhere else. And why is that? Because it's a psalm that assures us of God's presence and God's comfort. And it's a powerful psalm. Now, there are a few things I want to tell you as to what I'm not going to do that will grant you some relief and some comfort and will elicit some sighs of relief. Number one, I'm not going to lead you in a verse-by-verse exposition of the psalm. One sigh of relief. Number two, I'm not going to talk to you and walk you through the shepherd's view. You've heard these preachers hammer and talk to you about the Middle Eastern shepherd's view and understanding of the Psalm 23. I'm not going to do that. So that's another sigh of relief. I'm not going to walk you through verse by verse and pull out all the nuggets and the principles. So that's the third sigh of relief. I'm just going to talk about one word. Just one word. In verse 6. And if you remember verse 6, what is verse 6? Noah's taking a little break. What's verse 6? Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That one word I want to talk about is the word follow. That's it. And I see that the young adults are moving very fast in the service. And so who knows, if we go at this pace, we might be out by 3:30. And in this summer heat and weather, not so. No, don't check on that. In this summer heat and all of that, it would be nice to go home and say, well, we finished early today. But that one word, follow. Now, in the English language, when we use the word follow, often it comes across as a very passive word. You know, you're following somebody. You're driving to some place and you're following your GPS. You are the passive participant. You're following something or somebody else. But as you will see in my explanation, when I pull out this word follow, it means something diametrically opposite to what we are used to when we use the word follow. But before I pull out that word follow and talk about it, I want to share two observations very quickly so that you understand the tone and the context of the psalm. The first one is that the motive of the shepherd, not the motive, but the motive, the shepherd motive, is central to our walk of faith. You will see that in the Old Testament, you will see that in the Gospels, and in fact, you will see that all the way in the book of Revelation. In in Ezekiel chapter 34, the prophet Ezekiel says, God will raise up one shepherd, referring to the Messiah, and he will unite the entire nation. And that's referring to the coming Messiah. When you get to Micah, when they talk about the prophecies of the coming Messiah, they talk about the shepherd, our leader who is the shepherd. And then when you get to the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, what did he say? He said, I am the good shepherd. You come to the pastoral epistles, you will see when they refer to pastors and church leaders, they talk about shepherds. Peter talks about shepherding the flock. And then finally, when you come to the last book in the New Testament, the book of Revelation, chapter 7 and verse 17, it says, the Lamb who sits on the throne is now the shepherd, and he will receive all glory. And you know the language of Revelation, it talks about the Lamb who is the shepherd. So the shepherd motive is very central to our faith and our walk as we follow the Lord Jesus Christ. Observation number one. Observation number two is, no matter how you read it, Psalm 23 is set in a context of trouble. Now, I know the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. All those are very comforting words. But you cannot miss the tone of trouble. For instance, as King David writes Psalm 23, you will see he talks about, you have prepared a table where? In the presence of my good old friends, right? Yes, if you said amen to that, you are asleep already. You prepare a table in the presence of my relatives. No, you got to say, Pastor Ben, that's heresy. Don't preach heresy. You prepare a table in the presence of my enemies. So you'll see there's trouble talked about there. And then he also talks about the valley of the shadow of death. He doesn't talk about the valley of abundance. He doesn't talk about the valley of blessing. The valley of shadow of death. The valley of shadow of death. And he says, I fear no evil. So from all these inferences, we gather that Psalm 23 was written in the context of trouble. Many scholars believe that it was written when David was being pursued by King Saul. There are other scholars who believe that it was written when he was pursued by his son Absalom and his rebellious team. But whatever the case may be, Psalm 23 was written in the context of trouble. You see that in several verses, in several thoughts that King David expresses in Psalm 23. Now I get to the word. I get to the word follow. I've shared my two observations and I want to just get to the word. Now, as I was saying, in the English language, the word follow means, I follow somebody on social media, and when it is inconvenient, what do? I can stop following. I follow people, I follow my GPS. Sometimes when you're going on a walk during these days, Elmer and I just chatted before the service, and we talked about yesterday being the longest day and being out and all of that. And when you're out going for a walk and there is a squirrel that's curious and it follows you. But then you turn around and you stomp your feet, the squirrel will scurry away and scamper off onto a tree. So you will see there is the following, but it is very passive. But this word, the only word that I want to reflect on today, is a very powerful word. It is used in a military context. It's the Hebrew word radap. Now, we don't have to worry about it. But wherever it is used to talk about somebody who's hunting the enemy. For instance, you remember when the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea, or when they were about to cross the Red Sea, who was coming after them? The armies of Pharaoh. And they were coming after them not to give them a bouquet of roses, not to shake their hands and say, we wish you a safe journey across the Red Sea. They were coming after them to destroy them. And the word used there is the word pursue. You will see in Exodus 14, the armies of Pharaoh pursued the children of Israel. And another passage where this is used in 1 Samuel chapter 23, where we read King Samuel and his men pursuing King David. So you will see that word pursue has nothing to do with following somebody because you like somebody. It means you are pursuing them because you want to destroy them. It means pursuing without any reservation, unrelenting in your pursuit. And you want to go after them and you want to destroy them. That's the word that's used when we read verse 6 and it says follow. And it's that Hebrew word radap, which means that there is that pursuit. So if you take that word and if you apply it to verse 6 of Psalm 23, what do we get? Surely goodness and mercy will pursue me all the days of my life. And what we see here is that there's an interesting play on the images here. King David is saying, I am being pursued by my enemies. I am being pursued by King Saul, or if it was his son Absalom and his rebellious team that is referring to, I am being pursued by them. But then he says, God is also pursuing me. And it's an interesting play on the image here. I am running for my life because they are pursuing me. But I am looking at a higher reality and I can see that God is pursuing me. God is not just following me conveniently. God is actively pursuing me. And what is God pursuing me with? He's pursuing me not with death, not with destruction, but he's pursuing me with goodness and mercy. And he will make sure that I get to my final destination safely. So what does this mean for us? It means that as we go through life, as we are pursued by many challenges, as we are pursued by all the obstacles of life, as we are plagued by all the challenges of life, to know that there is a higher pursuer. There is God who's not passively watching our situation, but there is God who's actively pursuing. But he's pursuing us with goodness and mercy, and he will do it for the rest of our lives until he brings us to glory. Now, in 1890, there was a gentleman by the name of Francis Thompson, and he wrote a poem called The Hound of Heaven. It's a 182-line poem, so I don't fancy you reading that. Now, I know the title sounds strange, The Hound of Heaven. And Francis Thompson was using the imagery of the fox hunt, where there would be all these men who were mounted on horses and they would be hunting foxes. And they used hounds. And these hounds would go after the creatures they were hunting, whether it's a hare, whether it's a fox, whatever the case may be. And these hounds would not give up. They would relentlessly pursue until they would just crush their quarry and crush that little creature and capture the creature. And Francis Thompson is using the same imagery to say that there is a hound of heaven, and he's referring to God. Now, I know that sounds a little strange, but as you read the 182-line poem, you realize that this is what our God does. And Francis Thompson says that you can try everything you want to run away from God. You can try hiding. You can try doing all kinds of things to stay away from God. But when God sets his eyes on you, when God begins his work in you, he will not let go. He is the hound of heaven. And that is the assurance that King David had in Psalm 23, where he says, I may be pursued by my enemies, but I know that I am pursued by a higher reality. I am pursued by the highest pursuer. And he is pursuing me not with death, not with destruction, but he is pursuing me with goodness. And his intentions towards me are always good. Now, this thought might be strange as you start reading The Hound of Heaven. But as you read through the poem, as you read through Psalm 23, you realize quite a number of our hymns, quite a number of the songs we sing capture the same idea of God pursuing us. You remember Amazing Grace. What does it say? It is grace that has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. It is this driving, pursuing love of God that will take us home. And I want to give you another example. You remember Jen Johnson's song, The Goodness of God. And we've done it several times. And there's a line that says, the goodness of God is what? Coming after me. In other words, the same idea of God, not just following me in a passive way, but God pursuing me. God not willing to let go. And so that is encouragement to us, because as we go through the challenges of life, to know that even though our God might be perceived as being silent, that our God is pursuing us. He's pursuing us with goodness. He's pursuing us with His kindness. And He has promised in this psalm and in several other passages that He will bring us safely home. There is another song that we will sing today, not as the closing song, but I've asked Sydney to come and do this for us with Duchesne supporting her. It is Reckless Love. Have we done Reckless Love before? We've done it so well. And here are a few lines from Reckless Love. Oh, it chases me down. It fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it. I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Or the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God coming after me. And when you listen to those lines, you recognize that yes, without us even thinking, we have been singing this idea of God pursuing us. God pursuing us with goodness and with mercy, and God pursuing us with the assurance that He will bring us safely home. So as we close, I know that Andrew and the worship team do have their closing song, which is Love Come Down. But before we sing that, I have invited Sydney to come and lead us in a time of reflection. So what Sydney is going to do for us is she's going to sing Reckless Love. And we are not going to sing with her because the words are not going to come up, Noah, don't worry. We are going to have our eyes closed and we are going to reflect on the words. And we want to remind ourselves that this is our God, referred to as the Hound of Heaven by Francis Thompson in his poem. This is our God who is pursuing us. And even as you think about the difficulties you're facing, it might be a health concern, it might be a relationship issue, it might be the future. What is the future bound to be like? How will it unfold? It is assuring to know that God is pursuing us with His love, with His goodness, with His mercy. And He's pursuing us just like the armies of Pharaoh pursued the children of Israel. He's pursuing us just like King Saul pursued David, but He is pursuing us with a difference. He is showering us, He is flooding us, He is assuring us that He will always be there and He will guide us through. So today, you might be facing the earthly realities of challenges and difficulties. May I encourage you to shift from the earthly realities and to recognize and be assured that our God is pursuing us at a higher level. And He promises in verse 6, I like the way verse 6 ends. It says, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. An assurance that we are people of an eternal destiny. That when God promises to lead us, when God promises to pursue us, it is not just for this earthly life only. It is a pursuit that has eternal significance, and He will bring us safely home. So may this encourage us. And come, Sydney, please come. I don't know how Sydney is going to juggle this with Aurora, but she will do it. So this is a time of reflection. And after this, I believe Andrew and the worship team will come and close us with Love Come Down. Duchesne and Sydney will lead us now. May we have our eyes closed as we listen to the reckless love of God coming after us.